She took the horse no one wanted and crushed the elite in front of the world. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. I promise that this will be the best story you will hear in your life. The crystal chandeliers cast dancing reflections across the polished mahogany floors of Westbrook Equestrian Center, where the annual Kentucky Elite Horse Auction was in full swing. The air smelled of expensive perfume, leather, and ambition. Men in tailored suits and women draped in designer wear moved across plush carpets that sank beneath their weight, their voices a symphony of practiced elegance and calculated charm. Each successful bid was followed by a predictable sequence of smiles and applause, the soundtrack of wealth-changing hands. Rebecca Anderson stood in the back corner, painfully aware of her worn jeans and simple blouse. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, her hands unadorned by jewelry, her presence almost invisible among the glittering crowd. At 26, she had exhausted her savings and borrowed money from her grandmother just to secure a bidding number for today's event, an event she had no business attending. Lot number 47, announced the auctioneer, his voice carrying across the hushed audience. Midnight Thunder, 5-year-old Friesian stallion, exceptional bloodline from the renowned Black Creek stables. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as handlers struggled to lead a magnificent black horse into the center ring. Standing almost 17 hands high, with a muscular build and flowing mane, the stallion was a vision of power and wildness. His coat gleamed under the lights, but it was his eyes that captured Rebecca's attention, deep, fierce, and filled with a defiance that made her heart race. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer continued, his tone carefully neutral, Midnight Thunder has exceptional conformation and pedigree. However, I must disclose that he has shown resistance to traditional training methods. His previous handlers have reported challenges with compliance. Whispers swept through the crowd. Rebecca overheard fragments. Nearly killed his trainer. Completely unmanageable. Black Creek wants to cut their losses. The stallion pawed at the ground, nostrils flaring, muscles tensed as if ready to explode at any moment. We'll start the bidding at $5,000, the auctioneer said, his voice notably less enthusiastic than it had been for previous lots. Silence fell over the room. Not a single hand was raised. $3,000. He tried again. The stallion reared suddenly, nearly pulling free from his handlers. Women gasped. Men took protective steps backward. $1,000. Rebecca felt something stir within her, not fear but recognition. She saw in those wild eyes something familiar, something she understood on a level that transcended logic. Before she could stop herself, her hand was in the air. Well, $500, she called out, her voice steady despite the sudden attention from hundreds of surprised faces. The auctioneer blinked, clearly not expecting a bid. I have $2,500 from the young lady in the back. Do I hear 2,000? The crowd turned to look at Rebecca, expressions ranging from amusement to disdain. No competing bid came, and $500 going once, twice. The auctioneer paused, giving the wealthy crowd one last chance. Sold to bidder number 218. Soft laughter and murmured comments followed Rebecca as she made her way to the payment office. She heard snippets. Does she have a death wish? That's Black Creek's problem solved. She'll be returning him within a week if she survives. James Harrington, owner of Black Creek Stables and one of the most respected horse breeders in Kentucky, intercepted her before she reached the office. His custom-tailored suit and carefully groomed silver hair exuded authority and old money. Miss, I feel obligated to warn you, he said, his tone condescending. That animal is dangerous. We've had our most experienced trainers work with him for months without progress. He's injured 3 handlers already. Rebecca met his gaze steadily. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Harrington. I'll take my chances. I could offer you one of our other horses at a similar price. Something more, suitable for someone of your... His eyes flicked over her simple attire. Experience level. I'm not interested in another horse, Rebecca replied. I'm interested in Midnight Thunder. Harrington's expression hardened. Your funeral, he muttered, walking away with a dismissive wave. An hour later, Rebecca stood outside the loading area, waiting as the handlers attempted to coax the stallion into her modest trailer. The animal resisted, rearing and pulling back, his eyes wide with distrust. Rebecca approached slowly, dismissing the handlers with a gentle wave. "Give us a moment, please." When they stepped back, she stood still, simply existing in the horse's space without demands or expectations. She didn't reach for him or speak. She just breathed, letting her presence become something neutral rather than threatening. After several minutes, she reached into her pocket and produced an apple, holding it flat on her palm. She didn't extend her hand toward the stallion, just held it there, an offering without insistence. The horse's nostrils flared as he caught the scent. His ears flicked forward, then back, then forward again. The handlers watched in disbelief as eventually the stallion took one hesitant step forward. "That's it," Rebecca whispered. "No one's going to hurt you anymore." The drive back to her grandmother's small farm in rural Tennessee was tense. Every bump in the road made Rebecca's heart jump as she heard the stallion's agitated movements in the trailer behind her truck. The question that had been pushed aside by adrenaline now loomed large in her mind. What if everyone was right? What if this impulsive decision was nothing but a romantic error, born of foolish dreams? As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Rebecca finally turned onto the dirt road leading to Willow Creek Farm. 12 acres of mostly overgrown pasture, a small stable with 4 stalls, and the modest 2-bedroom house where her grandmother had raised her after her parents were gone. It wasn't impressive by any standard, especially compared to Black Creek's manicured estate, but it was home. Getting Midnight Thunder from the trailer to the stable proved even more challenging than loading him had been. He refused to follow a lead rope, threatened to kick anyone who came near his hindquarters, and only moved forward when given enough space to do so on his own terms. By the time Rebecca secured him in the largest stall, darkness had fallen completely and she was exhausted. Through the stall door, she watched as the stallion paced nervously, his powerful body tense with suspicion. In the dim light of the stable, his black coat seemed to absorb the darkness itself, making him look like a creature born of shadow. "So that's why they called you Midnight Thunder," she murmured. "But I think I'll just call you Thunder. Easier for both of us." The horse's ear twitched at the sound of her voice, but he continued his restless movement, keeping as much distance from her as the stall would allow. Rebecca's grandmother, Eleanor, appeared in the stable doorway, her slight frame illuminated from behind by the porch light. At 72, she moved more slowly than she once had, but her eyes remained sharp and knowing. "So this is the beast that ate up my savings account," she said, her tone more curious than accusatory. "I'll pay you back." "Gran, every penny." Eleanor studied the stallion from a safe distance. "They were going to destroy him, weren't they?" Rebecca nodded. "Not directly, but eventually. No one wanted him, except you." Eleanor smiled slightly. "You always did have a soft spot for the unwanted ones." Rebecca's mind flashed to a memory 15 years earlier, herself at 11, standing in a hospital corridor, overhearing the social worker tell her grandmother that she was challenging and difficult to place after all that had happened. Unwanted. "We understand each other," Rebecca said simply. Watching the stallion's powerful muscles ripple beneath his gleaming coat, Eleanor touched her granddaughter's shoulder gently. "Just be careful, dear. Some things are broken beyond repair." "Nothing is beyond repair if you have enough patience," Rebecca replied, her eyes never leaving Thunder. After her grandmother returned to the house, Rebecca pulled a folding chair into the stable and sat facing Thunder's stall. She opened the worn copy of Black Beauty she'd brought with her and began to read aloud, her voice soft and melodic in the quiet night. The stallion's pacing eventually slowed, though he remained alert, watching her from the far corner of his stall. Rebecca read until her voice grew hoarse, then simply sat in silence, sharing space without demands. "Tomorrow," she promised him as she finally rose to leave. "We begin again?" Thunder snorted and tossed his magnificent head, neither accepting nor rejecting her promise. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a beginning that no one else had bothered to offer him. Dawn broke over Willow Creek Farm, filtering through the stable windows in dusty golden beams. Rebecca had been there since before sunrise, sitting quietly near Thunder's stall, occasionally reading aloud from her book. The stallion remained wary, accepting water but refusing the oats she'd offered. A week passed in this manner. Rebecca divided her time between her job as a veterinary assistant at the local clinic and the stable, where she spent every free moment. She never pushed or demanded, simply existing in Thunder's space, gradually moving her chair closer to his stall each day. By the 8th morning, she was able to sit directly beside the stall door without causing him to retreat to the far corner. "You're wasting your time," said a gruff voice from the stable entrance. Rebecca turned to see Marcus, Fletcher leaning against the doorframe. In his mid-40s with weathered features and calloused hands, Marcus was the most sought-after horse trainer in 3 counties. He was also her boss's brother and had been giving her unsolicited advice since she was 12. "Hello to you too, Marcus," she replied, keeping her voice even to avoid disturbing Thunder. "Eleanor called me. She's worried." Marcus stepped into the stable, causing Thunder to immediately tense and snort in warning. "And from the looks of it, she has reason to be. That's James Harrington's problem horse, isn't it? The one nobody could handle?" Rebecca stood slowly. "His name is Thunder now, and he's not a problem. He's just been misunderstood." Marcus laughed without humor. "Misunderstood? Rebecca, that animal put one of Black Creek's trainers in the hospital. How's dangerous? Because he's been spoiled by Harrington's incompetent staff who didn't establish proper boundaries. What he needs is a firm hand and consistent discipline. What he needs is patience," Rebecca countered, "and someone who doesn't see him as a problem to be fixed." Marcus crossed his arms. "You've always been stubborn, but this is beyond stubborn. It's foolish. You don't have the experience or the resources to rehabilitate a horse like this. Let me take him to my facility. I'll give you a fair price. He's not for sale. Then at least let me help you. Free of charge." His expression softened slightly. "For your grandmother's sake." Rebecca hesitated. Marcus was arrogant and old school in his methods, but he was also skilled, and her savings were dwindling fast. "You can observe," she finally said, "but no whips, no spurs, no forcing him into submission. Those methods have already failed him." Marcus shook his head. "You can't treat a stallion like that as if he's some backyard pony. He needs to learn respect." Respect isn't taught through fear. Their argument was interrupted by the sound of tires on gravel. Through the stable door, Rebecca saw a gleaming black SUV pull up beside her weathered pickup truck. A tall, elegant woman in riding clothes emerged. Her blonde hair swept into an immaculate bun, sunglasses hiding her eyes despite the early hour. "Is that?" Marcus began. "Victoria Harrington," Rebecca finished. Recognizing James Harrington's daughter and Black Creek's head trainer from equestrian magazines. Known for her ruthless pursuit of perfection both in competition and in business, Victoria had led Black Creek's breeding program to national prominence. Victoria strode into the stable as if she owned it, removing her sunglasses to reveal cold blue eyes that immediately fixed on Thunder. The stallion responded to her presence with a violent reaction, rearing in his stall and striking the walls with his hooves. "I see Midnight hasn't changed," Victoria remarked, her voice as smooth and controlled as her appearance. "I'm surprised he hasn't broken out of this quaint facility." "His name is Thunder now," Rebecca said, moving protectively closer to the stall. "What do you want, Ms. Harrington?" Victoria smiled thinly. "I've come to rectify my father's mistake. He should never have allowed this horse to be sold, especially to someone clearly unprepared to handle him. I'm prepared to offer you 3 times what you paid." "He's not for sale," Rebecca repeated, the same words she'd just said to Marcus now carrying a different weight. Victoria's smile disappeared. "Don't be ridiculous. You work at a vet clinic, live with your grandmother, and from the looks of this place can barely afford proper feed. Midnight is worth tens of thousands with the right training, which you can't provide. I told you his name is Thunder now, and he's not for sale at any price." Victoria stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Do you know why that horse is so valuable despite his behavior? His bloodline. We had planned to build our next generation of champions around him before he became difficult. That plan hasn't changed." "Maybe his difficulty is telling you something," Rebecca suggested. Victoria's laugh was brittle. "Horses don't tell us anything. They serve a purpose: competition, breeding, or profit. Sentiment is for children and amateurs." She glanced at Marcus. "Mr. Fletcher, perhaps you can talk some sense into your protégé." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not involved in this transaction, Miss Harrington." Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. No, interesting. Well, my offer stands until the end of the month. After that, things might become more uncomplicated. With a final cold glance at Thunder, she replaced her sunglasses and walked out. You've made an enemy there, Marcus observed, after Victoria's SUV disappeared down the drive. The Harringtons aren't used to being refused. Rebecca was barely listening, her attention on Thunder. The stallion was still agitated, his breathing rapid, his powerful body trembling. She began to hum softly, an old lullaby her grandmother used to sing. Gradually, the horse's breathing slowed. I'll be back tomorrow, Marcus said, heading for the door. And Rebecca? Be careful, not just of the horse. Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca continued her patient approach, while Marcus observed with poorly concealed skepticism. Thunder gradually allowed her to approach close enough to brush him, though he still shied away from any attempt to touch his head or neck. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Rebecca decided it was time to try leading Thunder to the small paddock behind the stable. With Marcus watching from a safe distance, she opened the stall door, holding a lead rope but not attempting to attach it to Thunder's halter. He'll bolt the moment he's free, Marcus predicted. Rebecca didn't respond. She simply stood in the doorway waiting. Thunder eyed the opening suspiciously, but made no move to charge through it. After several minutes, Rebecca took one step back, then another. The stallion followed her movement with his eyes. Come on, she said softly. The sun feels nice today. To Marcus's visible astonishment, Thunder took a tentative step forward, then another, following Rebecca out of the stall and through the stable door without being led. In the paddock, he immediately moved away from her, trotting around the perimeter, testing the fencing. But he didn't attempt to jump or break through. I'll be damned, Marcus muttered. Rebecca smiled, watching Thunder explore his new freedom. He just needed to make his own choice. Lucky coincidence, Marcus insisted. The real test will be when you try to actually ride him. That test came sooner than planned. The following week, Rebecca entered the stable to find Thunder's stall door open and the horse missing. Heart-pounding, she ran outside calling his name. Marcus arrived moments later, responding to her panicked phone call. The lock was cut, he observed, examining the stall door. Someone took him, or set him loose hoping he'd run away, Rebecca said, thinking of Victoria's warning. They searched the property, then expanded to neighboring fields. 2 hours later, they found him trapped in a marshy area beyond the north pasture, mud up to his chest, thrashing in panic and exhaustion. He'll break a leg if he keeps struggling, Marcus warned. We need a rescue team with proper equipment. There's no time, Rebecca said, already removing her boots. She waded into the marsh, moving slowly to avoid startling the trapped stallion further. Thunder's eyes rolled wildly as she approached, but his struggles weakened as fatigue overtook him. Easy, she soothed, finally close enough to touch him. I'm going to help you. For the next hour, she worked to free him, using branches for leverage, digging with her hands when necessary, talking to him continuously in a calm, reassuring voice. Marcus eventually joined her, his expertise proving valuable as they created a path of more solid ground. When Thunder finally dragged himself from the marsh, he was trembling with exhaustion, covered in mud, but miraculously uninjured. Instead of bolting once free, he stood beside Rebecca, his great head lowered, his sides heaving. Impulsively, Rebecca placed her hand on his mud-caked neck. For the first time, Thunder didn't pull away. Something fundamental had shifted between them, a trust born of vulnerability and rescue. Let's go home, she whispered. To Marcus's visible amazement, Thunder followed Rebecca back to the stable without resistance, staying close as if drawing strength from her presence. As they walked, Rebecca noticed fresh tire tracks on the rarely used back road that bordered their property. Someone deliberately set him loose where he'd likely get trapped, she said quietly to Marcus. You think Victoria Harrington would go that far? Rebecca's expression hardened. I think someone wants me to give up on him. But that's not going to happen. That evening, after Thunder was clean, fed and resting, Rebecca sat on the porch with her grandmother, watching fireflies rise from the darkening fields. Marcus told me what happened, Eleanor said, passing Rebecca a mug of tea. He also said you were either the bravest or the most foolish person he's ever met. Rebecca smiled tiredly. Coming from Marcus, that might be a compliment. He also said that Horse looked at you today like you hung the moon. Eleanor studied her granddaughter's face. You're starting to believe you can actually do this, aren't you? I always believed it, Gran. Now Thunder's beginning to believe it too. She sipped her tea, watching the stars emerge. Tomorrow I'm going to try sitting on his back for the first time. Eleanor sighed. Just promise me you'll be careful. I can't lose you too. Rebecca reached for her grandmother's weathered hand. You won't lose me. Thunder and I, we understand each other now. We've both been trapped before. As if in response to her words, a soft nickering came from the stable, carrying through the peaceful evening air like a promise of things to come. Morning light filtered through the mist hanging over Willow Creek Farm as Rebecca led Thunder to the small round pen she and Marcus had constructed over the weekend. For the past 3 days, she had been sitting on his back for brief periods, no saddle, just a simple bareback pad. Each session had been tense but successful, with Thunder tolerating her weight, though clearly uncomfortable with the new sensation. Today would be different. Today she would ask him to move with her on his back. You're rushing this, Marcus cautioned from his position by the gate. He's only just accepting you on his back while standing still. Rebecca adjusted the soft rope halter on Thunder's head, the only piece of equipment he would tolerate. He's ready. I can feel it. And if you're wrong? She stroked Thunder's neck. Then I'll pick myself up and try again tomorrow. Marcus shook his head but opened the gate for them. Rebecca led Thunder into the pen, then spent several minutes just walking him around the perimeter, establishing a calm connection before asking for more. When she felt his muscles relax beneath her hand, she stopped him and with one fluid motion swung onto his back. Thunder stiffened immediately. Rebecca sat perfectly still, breathing deeply, waiting for him to adjust to her weight. After what seemed like an eternity, she felt the tension begin to ebb from his powerful frame. Good boy, she murmured, leaning forward slightly to stroke his neck. Now let's try walking. She applied the gentlest pressure with her legs, a mere suggestion of movement. Thunder remained frozen for several heartbeats, then took one hesitant step forward, then another. Within minutes they were walking around the perimeter of the pen, Thunder's movement stiff and uncertain but willing. I'll be damned, Marcus said for the second time in as many weeks. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it. They worked for just 15 minutes before Rebecca slid from Thunder's back, rewarding him lavishly with praise and apple slices. As she led him back to the stable, her phone rang. The local number was unfamiliar. Is this Rebecca Anderson? Asked a crisp female voice when she answered. Yes, speaking. This is Diane Porter from the Tennessee Valley Equestrian Association. I'm calling because your name was submitted as a potential last-minute entry for our autumn showcase next month. Rebecca frowned in confusion. I'm sorry, there must be a mistake. I didn't submit an entry. The submission came from Marcus Fletcher, the woman explained. He spoke very highly of you and your unique training methods. We have an opening in the novice jumper division due to a withdrawal. Normally, we wouldn't consider such a late entry, but Mr. Fletcher's reputation carries significant weight with the committee. Rebecca glanced at Marcus, who was checking Thunder's hooves with deliberate concentration, clearly eavesdropping. I appreciate the offer, Rebecca said carefully, but we're not ready for competition. The showcase isn't just about competition, Diane continued. It's an opportunity for networking, visibility, and potential sponsorships. Mr. Fletcher mentioned you might benefit from those aspects given your current circumstances. Marcus finally looked up, meeting Rebecca's questioning gaze with a shrug. The prize money's decent too, he called out, loud enough for the phone to pick up. Rebecca considered the financial reality of her situation. The veterinary clinic had reduced her hours due to a slow season, her grandmother's medical bills were mounting, and Thunder's specialized feed wasn't cheap. Can I have a day to think about it? She asked him, and of course. The entry fee would be waived in your case, given the circumstances. Please let me know by tomorrow afternoon. After ending the call, Rebecca turned to Marcus. You submitted my name without asking me? He straightened up, unrepentant. You need the exposure, and frankly, you need the money. Plus, it's time to show Victoria Harrington that her precious Black Creek doesn't have a monopoly on exceptional horses. Thunder's barely accepting a rider. Competition is months away, maybe years. Not if you had proper facilities and could work with him full-time, Marcus gestured around the modest stable. The showcase could open doors, sponsors, students, a chance to build something here. Or it could be a disaster that confirms everyone's opinion that I'm in over my head. Marcus approached, his expression unusually serious. Rebecca, I've been training horses for 25 years. I've seen talent, both equine and human. And I don't say this lightly, what you've accomplished with that stallion in weeks is what takes most trainers months or years, if ever. You have a gift. The unexpected praise left Rebecca momentarily speechless. Besides, Marcus added with a sly smile, Black Creek will be there. Wouldn't it be something to show Victoria Harrington what her problem horse can do with the right person? That evening, Rebecca sat at her grandmother's kitchen table, calculating finances on a worn notepad. The numbers weren't encouraging. The property taxes were coming due, the stable roof needed repairs before winter, and Eleanor's arthritis medication wasn't fully covered by insurance. You should accept the showcase invitation, Eleanor said, setting a cup of coffee beside Rebecca's elbow. Marcus is right about the opportunity. We're not ready, Gran. Thunder's just starting to trust me. Eleanor sat down across from her granddaughter. When your grandfather and I bought this place 40 years ago, everyone said we were crazy. Too much work, too little money, too far from town. But your grandfather said something I never forgot. Sometimes you have to step off the edge to discover you can fly. Rebecca smiled faintly. I barely remember him. He would have adored you. Eleanor reached across the table to cover Rebecca's hand with her own. He also would have told you that fear makes good decisions impossible. I'm not afraid, Rebecca protested. Aren't you? Not of the horse, perhaps, but of failing, of proving right all those people who've underestimated you your whole life. Rebecca didn't answer, but the truth of her grandmother's words settled in her chest like a weight. Call the woman back, Eleanor said gently. Say yes. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of intense training. Thunder progressed remarkably, moving from basic riding to introductory jumping exercises. Marcus came by almost daily now. His initial skepticism transformed into genuine investment in their success. Word spread through the local equestrian community about the miracle trainer and her once dangerous stallion. Curious neighbors and fellow riders began stopping by to watch their sessions. Some offered encouragement. Others clearly came to witness the inevitable failure. Rebecca ignored them all, focusing solely on building Thunder's confidence and skills. They developed a language of subtle cues and mutual trust that transcended conventional training methods. When Thunder became anxious about a new obstacle, Rebecca would dismount and walk through it with him, before asking him to jump. When he accomplished something difficult, she would simply sit with him afterward, her forehead pressed against his, sharing quiet acknowledgement of their achievement. 3 weeks before the showcase, Victoria Harrington returned to Willow Creek Farm, this time accompanied by her father. James Harrington's imperious presence filled the modest stable as he inspected Thunder with critical eyes. Remarkable improvement, he admitted reluctantly, though still far below his potential. We're just getting started, Rebecca replied, standing protectively near Thunder's head. Victoria cut in, her voice sharp with impatience. Let's stop pretending. We know you've entered the autumn showcase. It's a charming amateur effort, but ultimately futile. Black Creek will have 6 entries in various divisions, including our new champion stallion Royal Decree and novice jumpers. We're not competing against you, Rebecca said. We're just there to show what Thunder can do. James Harrington stepped forward. I'll be direct, Ms. Anderson. This has gone on long enough. I'm prepared to offer you $20,000 for Midnight Thunder. A generous amount considering his history. The sum was staggering, enough to pay off her grandmother's medical bills, repair the stable, and still have money left over. Rebecca felt her resolve waver for a brief moment, before Thunder nudged her shoulder gently, as if sensing her distress. Thank you, but as I've told your daughter twice now, he's not for sale. James's expression hardened. You should know that Black Creek Stables maintains breeding rights to all horses of our bloodline, regardless of current ownership. Our legal team has been reviewing the situation. That's ridiculous, Rebecca protested. I have a bill of sale with no conditions. Legal documents can be interpreted many ways, Victoria interjected smoothly. And legal battles are expensive and time-consuming. Something to consider in your Financial situation. After they left, Rebecca called the only lawyer she knew, her high school friend Katie, now practicing family law in Nashville. The news wasn't encouraging. They probably don't have a legitimate claim, Katie explained, but they could tie you up in court for months, even years. The costs alone would be prohibitive, Becca. The threat hung over Rebecca as the showcase approached. A week before the event, disaster struck. Thunder developed a slight lameness in his right foreleg. The veterinarian found nothing serious, just a minor strain requiring a few days of rest. But the timing couldn't have been worse. "We should withdraw," Rebecca told Marcus as they watched Thunder in his stall, the stallion's leg wrapped in a supportive bandage, "and give the Harringtons exactly what they want." Marcus countered. "Not a chance. The vet said he'll be fine with a few days' rest. We still have time." Thunder recovered quickly, but their final week of preparation was cut short. When they arrived at the Tennessee Valley Equestrian Center for the showcase, Rebecca felt woefully unprepared. The facility was impressive. Manicured grounds, professional stabling, and sophisticated jumping courses that made their homemade obstacles look like children's toys. Black Creek's area was immediately identifiable, a row of pristine stalls with custom nameplates, grooms in matching uniforms, and an air of confident superiority. Victoria stood at the center, directing staff with imperious efficiency, while James entertained a group of well-dressed potential clients. Rebecca led Thunder to their assigned stall in the general competitor area, trying to ignore the contrast between their modest setup and Black Creek's display of wealth. Thunder, however, seemed unaffected by the bustle and grandeur, his attention focused solely on Rebecca as she settled him into his temporary home. "Don't look so nervous," came a friendly voice. Rebecca turned to see a young woman with short-cropped dark hair and a warm smile, leading a chestnut mare into the neighboring stall. "First showcase? Just that obvious, huh?" "I'm Alex," the woman said, extending her hand. "That's Penny." She nodded toward her mare. "We're in novice jumpers, too." "Rebecca. And this is Thunder." Alex whistled low. "So you're the one everyone's talking about, the miracle worker with Black Creek's reject." Rebecca winced. "Word travels fast. In this world, at the speed of light." Alex leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Just so you know, most of us are rooting for you. The Harringtons aren't exactly beloved in this community." As Rebecca prepared Thunder for their practice session, she noticed Victoria watching from a distance, her cold gaze calculating. The message was clear. The battle was just beginning. The morning of the competition dawned clear and crisp, autumn sunlight filtering through the stable windows. Rebecca had spent the night on a cot beside Thunder's stall, unwilling to leave him alone in the unfamiliar environment. She found him alert but calm, watching her with those intelligent eyes that now held trust instead of fear. "Today's the day, big guy," she murmured, running a brush over his gleaming coat. "No pressure. We're just going to show them what we can do." Marcus arrived as she was adjusting Thunder's simple tack, a plain black saddle and bridle. Nothing like the ornate equipment adorning the Black Creek horses. "How's our champion this morning?" he asked, offering Thunder an apple. "Ready as he'll ever be," Rebecca replied, though her stomach churned with anxiety. "How's the competition looking?" Marcus's expression turned serious. "Black Creek's new stallion Royal Decree is impressive. Victoria's riding him herself, but there's something you should know." He lowered his voice. "I overheard James Harrington talking to the judges at breakfast. He was being very friendly. You think he's trying to influence them?" "I think the Harringtons don't like to lose." Marcus squeezed her shoulder. "Just focus on Thunder. The rest doesn't matter." An hour later, Rebecca stood at the warm-up ring, watching Victoria put Royal Decree through his paces. The stallion was magnificent, a gleaming chestnut with flawless conformation and athletic movement. His jumps were precise, powerful, and technically perfect. The crowd around the ring murmured appreciatively. Rebecca felt a flutter of doubt. Thunder was still learning, still finding his confidence. How could they possibly compete against such polished perfection? Intimidating, isn't it? Alex appeared beside her, Penny already saddled and ready. "But here's what I've learned after 5 years on this circuit. Technical perfection isn't everything. Heart matters too." Rebecca smiled gratefully at her new friend, then led Thunder to a quiet corner of the warm-up area. Instead of immediately mounting, she stood before him. her hands gently framing his face, bringing their foreheads together in the ritual they'd established. "Whatever happens today," she whispered, "we've already won. You trusted me. That's enough." The novice jumper division began with 12 entries. Victoria and Royal Decree went second, delivering a flawless round that set a seemingly unbeatable standard. The crowd's applause was enthusiastic, though somewhat obligatory. Excellence was expected from Black Creek. Rebecca and Thunder were scheduled last. As they waited, Rebecca spotted her grandmother being helped to a seat in the spectator area by Katie, who had driven up from Nashville for moral support. Seeing Eleanor there, despite her arthritis pain and general dislike of crowds, filled Rebecca with a surge of determination. When their turn finally came, a curious hush fell over the arena. Many had heard about the miracle horse, but had reserved judgment. Others, familiar with Thunder's history at Black Creek, came expecting disaster. Victoria and James Harrington stood by the arena entrance, their expressions a mixture of disdain and calculation. As Rebecca and Thunder entered the ring, she felt him tense beneath her. The crowd, the unfamiliar setting, the pressure. It was a lot to ask of a horse who just months ago couldn't bear human contact. She leaned forward, stroking his neck. "Just you and me," she murmured. "Forget everything else." They began their round cautiously, Thunder approaching the first jump with hesitation. He cleared it awkwardly but without fault. The second jump went more smoothly. By the third, he was finding his rhythm, his natural athletic ability beginning to emerge. Halfway through the course, Rebecca felt a shift. Thunder was no longer just following her cues. He was anticipating them, his ears flicking back to catch her slightest signal, then forward again toward each approaching obstacle. They moved together as one, communication flowing between them in a silent, perfect dialogue. The crowd began to respond, their murmurs growing into genuine appreciation. Even Victoria's composed expression showed cracks of surprise. Thunder cleared the difficult triple combination with room to spare, his powerful haunches driving him forward with newfound confidence. As they approached the final jump, a challenging oxer set at maximum height for the division, Rebecca felt Thunder gather himself without prompting. They soared over it in a perfect arc that seemed suspended in time, landing with graceful precision on the other side. The timer stopped. They had completed the course clear of faults and 3 seconds faster than Victoria's round. For a moment, stunned silence hung in the air. Then the applause began, scattered at first, then swelling into genuine enthusiasm. Rebecca patted Thunder's neck, overwhelmed with pride not for the potential win, but for how far they had come together. As they exited the ring, Marcus met them with an uncharacteristic grin. "That was," he began, but was interrupted by Victoria Harrington's approach. "Impressive," Victoria said, her voice tight with controlled anger, but ultimately meaningless. "The judges have already made their decision." Before Rebecca could respond, the announcer's voice crackled over the speakers, calling all novice jumper competitors to the center ring for ribbon presentation. Rebecca's stomach knotted with anxiety as she and Thunder joined the line of horses and riders awaiting results. The placings began with 6th, then 5th, each name called, increasing the tension. When 4th place went to Alex and Penny, her new friend flashed Rebecca an encouraging smile. "3rd place," announced the judge, "goes to Eliza Jenkins and Moonlight Sonata." Only 2 places remained. Rebecca held her breath. 2nd place, Victoria Harrington and Royal Decree. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Victoria's face froze in shock and fury. James Harrington stood from his seat, his expression thunderous. And our 1st place winner in novice jumpers, Rebecca Anderson and Midnight Thunder. The applause was immediate and genuine. Rebecca sat stunned as a judge approached with the blue ribbon. Thunder, sensing the celebration, arched his neck proudly, as if finally understanding his own worth. The victory ceremony passed in a blur. When Rebecca finally led Thunder back to their stall area, Eleanor was waiting, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Your grandfather would have been so proud," she said, embracing her granddaughter. "We actually won." "Gran," Rebecca whispered, still disbelieving. "Of course you did. You saw what others couldn't see." Eleanor touched Thunder's nose gently. "You both did." Their celebration was interrupted by James Harrington, who approached with 2 men in suits, his lawyers. Rebecca assumed with sinking heart. "Congratulations," James said stiffly, though I suspect the judges were swayed more by sentiment than technical merit. "Mr. Harrington," Rebecca began, bracing for another legal threat. "Please let me finish," he held up a hand. "I came to inform you that Black Creek Stables is withdrawing any claim to Midnight Thunder." Rebecca blinked in surprise. "You are? The publicity from such a dispute would be unfavorable, especially after today's performance." His expression remained rigid, but something shifted in his eyes. "Furthermore, I'd like to offer you a position." "A position?" "As a specialized trainer at Black Creek. Your methods, unconventional as they are, clearly have merit with certain difficult cases. We have several valuable animals that have proven resistant to traditional approaches." Victoria appeared behind her father, her face a mask of controlled rage. "Father, we haven't discussed—" "It's decided, Victoria." His tone brooked no argument. "Ms. Anderson has proven her worth today." He turned back to Rebecca. "The salary would be substantial. The facilities world-class. You could bring Midnight Thunder, of course." For a brief moment, Rebecca imagined it. Financial security, professional recognition, state-of-the-art equipment. No more worrying about bills or repairs. But then she looked at Thunder, at her grandmother, at the small community of supporters who had gathered around them. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington, but I have to decline," she said firmly. "Thunder and I belong at Willow Creek Farm." James's eyebrows rose. "You're turning down the most prestigious training position in the state." "I am. But I would be open to consulting occasionally if any of your horses need a different approach." After a calculating pause, James nodded. "We'll discuss terms later. Good day, Ms. Anderson." He turned to leave, then stopped. "That horse. He's quite extraordinary with you. Perhaps we misjudged what he needed." It was as close to an apology as a man like James Harrington could offer. In the days that followed, everything changed while somehow remaining the same. News of Thunder's victory and Rebecca's unconventional methods spread through equestrian circles. Offers came in for training, for breeding, for purchase, all of which Rebecca evaluated carefully, accepting some and declining others. Marcus convinced her to convert part of the farm into a small training facility specializing in troubled horses. "Not a big operation," he insisted. "Just enough to make a living doing what you were born to do." 1 month after the showcase, Rebecca stood in the pasture beside Willow Creek, watching Thunder graze peacefully in the late afternoon sun. The renovations to the stable were almost complete, funded by a combination of consulting fees from Black Creek, training income, and a modest bank loan that Katie had helped negotiate. Eleanor joined her, moving more easily now with the help of the new treatments her improved insurance could cover. "I got another call from Victoria Harrington today," Rebecca said. "She's sending over one of their young mares next week. Says she has attitude problems." Eleanor chuckled. "Translated from Victoria speak, that means the poor thing has opinions of her own." "Probably, but it's progress that she's willing to try my methods at all." They watched as Thunder raised his head, ears pricked forward, looking directly at Rebecca, as if checking that she was still there. When their eyes met, he nickered softly before returning to his grazing. "You know," Eleanor said thoughtfully, "when your mother was about your age, she told me something I never forgot. She said that healing happens in unexpected ways, and sometimes the thing you think is broken beyond repair is actually just waiting for the right person to see its value." Rebecca felt her throat tighten at the rare mention of her mother. "I wish she could have seen him." "Oh, I think she knows." Eleanor squeezed her granddaughter's hand. "Some connections transcend everything. Time, distance, even understanding. What you and Thunder have built together isn't just about training or trust. It's about recognizing each other's souls." As the sun began to set, painting the pasture in hues of gold and amber, Thunder trotted over to where Rebecca stood. Without prompting, he lowered his proud head to rest against her shoulder, his breath warm against her neck. In that moment of perfect communion, Rebecca knew with absolute certainty that they had both finally found home, not in a place, but in each other. 5 years later, Willow Creek Farm had become known throughout the country as a sanctuary for lost causes, horses deemed dangerous, untrainable or worthless by conventional standards. Under Rebecca's guidance, With Marcus's continued support and occasional gruff advice, most found their way back to trust and purpose. Some became competition horses, others therapy animals for troubled children. Each success further validated Rebecca's core belief that patience and understanding could overcome even the deepest wounds. Thunder, now a mature 10-year-old stallion, had become something of a legend. His offspring, carefully and selectively bred, were beginning to make their own marks in the equestrian world, combining their sire's athletic ability with his hard-won temperament. Victoria Harrington, in a surprising turn of events, had become one of Rebecca's most consistent clients, sending Black Creek's most challenging cases to Willow Creek with grudging respect. On a perfect spring morning, Rebecca led a group of visitors, potential clients and students, on a tour of the facility. As they approached the special paddock where Thunder now spent his days, a little girl separated from her parents and ran to the fence. "Is that him?" she asked excitedly. "The famous Thunder who nobody wanted?" Rebecca smiled, watching as Thunder approached the fence with regal confidence, no trace remaining of the frightened, aggressive animal he had once been. "That's him," she confirmed. "The horse who taught me that sometimes what looks like defiance is actually just a cry for understanding." The little girl reached her hand toward Thunder, who gently lowered his muzzle to her small palm in a gesture of perfect trust. "How did you know he could change?" she asked, wide-eyed with wonder. Rebecca thought about all the broken pieces that had somehow fit together to create this moment, her own past wounds, Thunder's trauma, the struggle and doubt and ultimate triumph they had shared. "I didn't know for certain," she admitted. "I just believed it was possible. And sometimes, belief is enough to build a bridge where others see only impossible distances." As she spoke, Thunder raised his head and met her gaze with the same profound connection that had carried them through every challenge. In his eyes, she saw not just the story they had already written together, but the chapters yet to come, a continuing testament to the healing power of patience, the strength found in vulnerability, and the transformative miracle of being truly seen. Dear listeners, we hope Thunder and Rebecca's journey has touched your hearts today. Their story reminds us that sometimes the most broken souls simply need someone who refuses to give up on them. For more inspiring tales of courage, redemption, and unbreakable bonds, we've created a special playlist filled with equally captivating stories. You'll find it by clicking on the left. If this story moved you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video. Every day we bring you unique narratives that explore life's complexities and celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Don't miss our upcoming content that will surely touch your heart just as Thunder and Rebecca's story has done. We eagerly await your thoughts in the comments section.